Yeah, well, that's where I learnt it back in Adelaide when I transferred from not transferred. I left South Diamond Depot, Melbourne, and went to Adelaide. And for those people overseas, Adelaide and Melbourne are about 800 kilometres apart by road. And so I joined the railway there, and that was the big thing. Like power braking was done on everything. But can you explain something to people? Because even it's a bit daunting for me now, being out of the job for such a long time. But going through hills, especially the Adelaide Hills, and I'm sure up in New South Wales, a lot of the hills, you get a train that's 1.6 kilometres long. When you said momentum driving, can you explain a little bit about that, for people? So when you got the train going up one here, down, and the train's back there coming up and down, how do you not split that in half?
Well, I mean, for a start, you need to know the road. If you know the road, you can use that to your advantage when you're going downhill. You're trying to use the momentum going downhill to give you enough speed to go back uphill again without using power, as little power, as little braking as you can. So you're using the topography of the layout of the land to keep you going as best as you can. When you're talking about the Adelaide Hills and the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, it's a bit difficult because we're 133 grade, so you're using dynamic brake and air brake to get down, especially the Blue Mountains in New South Wales. But I'm a big fan of momentum running because, like I said, it's a very simplified, but it's very good for the train, because you're not stressing it you're not stressing it by overusing brakes or overusing power. You're using the grades to actually run the train. So when you want to slow down, you time it. So when you want to slow down, you're going uphill, and when you want to speed up, you're going downhill. But that comes back to knowing the road really, really well as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, mate. And I think what you said there too is, it sounds sort of like wow, but obviously, when you've been in the job a while, it becomes like anything. It becomes second nature, and you get it. But saying that, it only takes one lack of concentration, and you can be in big trouble really quickly.
100%, mate, especially when you're talking about the steep grades going down the Blue Mountains. If you overuse the air brakes and exhaust the air, you can run out of brakes and have runaways, and that's when it gets really dangerous. So, again, that goes back to knowing what you're doing. I know when I when I was assessed to be a qualified driver in Adelaide, we had to run a certain section of track, which you'd probably know, Nairn to Petwood. You had to use that without, you had to get down there without using dynamic brakes, so you had to utilise the air brake only. And that was their way of understanding that you knew how to use the brake, and you knew how to keep yourself out of trouble as well. So it's very important.
Yeah, that was back in the day, through the Adelaide Hills, like Nairn, Petwood, and coming down from Mount Lofty, it's all just downhill. And you're coming into suburban areas, running into suburban trains there. And coming out of that big long tunnel, as you come out of that sweeping long tunnel where you get a view of Adelaide, they used to come out of that tunnel at quite a big speed, but you're talking about a few thousand ton on. And it really, when I first started in the job, it was just good to watch these old drivers, mate, who, they were just doing it like they were brushing their hair in the mirror, it was just, they sat, not stressed out, calm, and you think, wow, I can't wait till I get to that point of experience,
And it is just experience, but in my opinion, once you're driving a train in its own, in its pure sense, as an art form, in my opinion, and it's much easier nowadays with the technology we have, with the locomotives we have, and the dynamic brakes we have to actually get down steep grades. But like you said, back in that time, and especially my grandfather was a driver as well, and he would have driven trains in the days where there was no such thing as dynamic braking. So very much an art form to get it right, mate. Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. And especially, and I'll let you jump in a minute, Doug, but especially steam engines. Now, I know they never carried the loads, obviously, but still, no dynamic brake. You had the firemen shoveling. You had these massive big levers. You had the view. What gets me is the view was actually ridiculous. I don't even. You
Yeah.
couldn't. You had a tiny little window to look out. I couldn't even imagine what that was like on a wet, cold, rainy night. And these guys are coming down that hill, and they got this noise. And man, it's an art form, you know, to be driving.
Yeah.
Big, heavy Harry, the big one from Victoria. I couldn't imagine that thing screaming along at 60 mile an hour. And these guys are just little window to look out or head out the window. What an art form, you know?
Absolutely right, mate. And a quick funny story about my grandfather. He came down and had a look at an R class one day, which is the modern bread and butter locomotive of the biggest freight company in Australia, Pacific National. And he had a look on there, and he was a bit funny with me afterwards. And I was like, "What's all that about?" And I asked my grandmother. I said, "Why was he funny with me?" She goes, "Oh, he says he got it too easy. The stereo and the comfy seats and the air conditioning and the fridge. He never had any of that. And he didn't like it." So,
oh wow, that's funny, isn't it? Like that old, back in our day, young man. How dare you sit there in air-conditioned comfort and a radio going? You know, like we thought it was those locos behind me. Yeah, the air conditioning. Can you open the door a bit more, mate?
Yeah.